At 65, Jonathan Hayes, a former U.S. Attorney General, believed that staying physically and mentally active was the secret to living a fulfilling life. Each morning, he jogged the tranquil streets of Clearwater, a quaint suburban town known for its picturesque neighborhoods and friendly community. Jonathan had recently retired, but his sense of justice and fairness had never wavered. That Thursday morning started like any other. The crisp air and golden sunlight made his usual route especially peaceful. As he passed the corner bakery, a faint commotion caught his ear. Turning toward a narrow alley, Jonathan's keen eyes spotted two young men attempting to snatch an elderly woman's purse and bracelet. "Hey, stop that!" Jonathan called, his voice ringing with authority honed over decades of leadership. The two men froze momentarily, their eyes locking onto the older man. Realizing he wasn't backing down, they quickly abandoned their attempts and bolted into the shadows. Jonathan shook his head, muttering, "Cowards?" before rushing to the woman's side. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Jonathan asked, his voice gentle yet firm. The woman trembled, clutching her empty purse strap. They took everything," she stammered. Jonathan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're safe now, let's get you some help." As he spoke, a police cruiser sped toward them, its sirens piercing the calm morning air. Relieved, Jonathan waved the officers over. The cruiser screeched to a halt, and Officer Jack Burnett stepped out, his hand resting on his holster. His sharp, scrutinizing gaze immediately landed on Jonathan. "Step away from her," Burnett barked, his tone sharp and accusatory. Jonathan raised his hands, confused by the officer's hostility. "Officer, I'm the one who helped her. The thieves ran that way," he said, pointing toward the alley. Burnett ignored him. "I said, step away." The elderly woman tried to intervene, her voice trembling. "No, officer, you don't understand. He's not." "I'll handle this, ma'am," Burnett interrupted, cutting her off. His focus remained on Jonathan, his stance tense. Jonathan exhaled deeply, attempting to remain calm. "You've got this all wrong, officer, I was only helping." Burnett's suspicion only deepened. "Hands where I can see them," he demanded. Jonathan complied, raising his hands higher. "Officer, you're making a mistake." Burnett sneered. "The only mistake is you thinking I'm an idiot. What were you doing here, old man? Looking for a quick score?" A small crowd began to gather, murmuring among themselves. Some pulled out their phones to record the escalating scene, sensing something was amiss. Jonathan's patience wore thin, but he knew better than to react aggressively. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "I've been in law enforcement longer than you've likely been alive." Burnett scoffed. "Yeah? And I'm supposed to believe that?" His hand moved closer to his holster, his suspicion refusing to waver. The elderly woman stepped forward again, desperation in her voice. "Officer, please, he scared off the men who attacked me." "Stay back, ma'am," Burnett ordered, dismissing her again. The tension was unbearable. Jonathan knew he had to tread carefully. Slowly, he reached into his pocket. "I'm just getting my ID," he said calmly, stopping when Burnett raised his gun. "Don't move," Burnett shouted, his voice ringing with authority. Jonathan froze. "I'm not a threat, I just want to show you my badge." As Officer Burnett stared at the gleaming badge in Jonathan Hayes's hand, a wave of realization hit him like a tidal surge. The weight of his actions seemed to anchor him to the spot. Jonathan's calm, steady voice contrasted with the chaos swirling in Burnett's mind. "My name is Jonathan Hayes," Jonathan repeated, his tone measured yet firm. "Former U.S. Attorney General, you've just made a grave mistake." The murmurs of the crowd, which had grown in intensity, were now fully audible. People whispered to one another, some shaking their heads in disbelief, while others raised their phones higher to capture the unfolding drama. Burnett's arrogance had vanished, replaced by the unmistakable look of panic. Burnett's partner, a junior officer named Calloway, appeared frozen in disbelief. He'd stood by silently during the altercation, but now his wide-eyed expression revealed his inner turmoil. Burnett opened his mouth to speak, but his words stumbled over one another. Sir, I didn't." "You didn't ask," Jonathan interrupted, his voice unwavering. "You made assumptions. You escalated a situation you didn't understand." The elderly woman, emboldened by Jonathan's calm presence, stepped forward again. "Officer, listen to him. He saved me from those boys. You're treating him like he's the criminal." Burnett glanced at her and then back at Jonathan. The badge, shining in the sunlight, seemed to mock his earlier confidence. As silence hung heavily over the scene, the sound of additional police cruisers arriving shattered the moment. Sergeant Andrew Peters, a seasoned officer known for his no-nonsense approach, stepped out of his cruiser. He immediately assessed the scene: a tense crowd, an upset elderly woman, a flustered Officer Burnett, and a man of commanding presence holding up a federal badge. "Someone tell me what's going on here," Peters demanded, his gaze sharp. Jonathan stepped forward, lowering his badge but keeping it in plain view. "Sergeant Peters, I'm Jonathan Hayes, former U.S. Attorney General. I intervened to stop a robbery, but instead of listening, your officer chose to treat me like a criminal. He drew his weapon on me without cause." Peters' jaw tightened as he turned to Burnett. "Is this true?" Burnett shifted uncomfortably, his voice faltering. I didn't know who he was. I thought." "You thought wrong," Peters snapped. "Did you follow protocol? Did you verify his identity? Did you even listen to the witness?" Burnett shook his head, unable to meet Peters' gaze. The sergeant's frustration was evident. He motioned to another officer. "Confiscate his badge and firearm." Effective immediately, Officer Burnett is placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. The crowd murmured its approval as Burnett's partner, Calloway, stepped forward to comply with the sergeant's orders. The weight of the situation was etched on Burnett's face as his badge and gun were handed over. Jonathan turned to Peters, his calm demeanor unshaken. "This isn't just about me. It's about ensuring this doesn't happen to someone without the means to defend themselves." Peters nodded. "Understood, Mr. Hayes? Rest assured, this will be handled properly." The events of that morning did not remain confined to Clearwater. Within hours, videos of the incident had gone viral, sparking nationwide conversations about profiling, bias, and the need for systemic reform within law enforcement. Jonathan, a man who had spent decades championing justice, knew this was an opportunity to create meaningful change. In the days that followed, he was invited to speak on multiple platforms, sharing his experience to highlight the importance of accountability. In one televised interview, Jonathan addressed the nation. "What happened to me was a blatant misuse of authority. But what's more concerning is how easily it could have ended differently. I had the privilege of a badge to prove my innocence, many others do not. This is not just about one officer's actions. It's about a system that allows these assumptions to flourish." Jonathan proposed actionable steps, including mandatory de-escalation training, improved community engagement, and independent oversight boards to address complaints of misconduct. He emphasized the importance of law enforcement officers recognizing the weight of their power and using it responsibly. His words resonated with the public. In the weeks that followed, Clearwater's police department announced sweeping reforms, including revisiting their training programs and adopting new measures to ensure transparency and fairness. This story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of respect, empathy, and accountability in positions of authority. Jonathan Hayes's calm resolve and unwavering commitment to justice turned a moment of bias into a catalyst for change. If this story moved you, share it with others. Let's work together to create a world where every individual is treated with dignity and fairness, regardless of their background or appearance. Thank you for reading. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, justice begins with us. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. It's not just a tale of an individual standing up for justice, it's a wake-up call for all of us. Stories like this remind us that the fight for fairness and equality isn't just about the laws we pass or the policies we implement. It's about the everyday choices we make and the respect we show to one another. Jonathan Hayes used his voice and position to hold those in power accountable, but what about those who don't have such resources? It's up to us as a society to ensure that every person, regardless of their appearance, race, or status, is treated with the dignity they deserve. If this story inspired you, we encourage you to share it with friends and family. Let's amplify its message and push for change where it's needed most. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking stories that challenge the status quo and shine a light on the resilience of the human spirit. Together, we can build a world where justice and equality aren't just ideals but lived realities. Until next time, stay hopeful, stay vigilant, and remember, your voice matters.